Well, good morning. Welcome again to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Little Rock, where love is our teaching and service is our prayer. And today, our service is going to be about the eighth principle. For some, this will be a reminder, and for some, this will be an introduction. But I think you will learn a lot today. My name is Crystal. I have been a member here since 2018. Over that time, I've done a number of things. This is only my second time, though, being the pulpit assistant, and I kind of like it. So you might see me up here again soon. But in the past, I have been on the membership team. I've been an usher. I've been a greeter. If you want to get to know people, be a usher, be a greeter. You will get to know everyone. That's how I really learned a lot of the people when I was newer. I was the second Sunday coordinator for about 3 years. I hosted one small group dinner, but I am planning to do that again in the future. And also, I'm thinking about a few other things that I want to do, like maybe be on the lay ministry or the caring committee. And to those who are listening, when I'm ready for the board, I will give you a call or a text, but not now. But anyway, so we're glad that you're here with us. Everybody's on time. You know, we got an extra hour. We were just talking about how well rested we felt because of that extra hour. Nice, beautiful, sunshiny day. So good job to everyone. So if you're a newcomer, hopefully you were able to stop by the table out front where you were greeted and you were able to fill out a card so that we can stay in contact with you. We're so glad that you've chosen to be with us today. And my hope is that you hear something or you feel something that makes you want to come back again. I now invite Jean Miley to come forward to light the chalice and lead us in our affirmation of covenant, which is printed in your order of service.
Fingers. Sorry about that. I light this chalice with these words. Open our eyes to see what is beautiful. Open our minds to learn the truth. Open our hearts to love one another. Please join with me with our affirmation of covenant, which you'll find in your prayer bulletin, saying, Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow to harmony with the divine. Thus we covenant with each other.
Andrea Gibson is a delightfully mischievous poet. And Aliens Explain Why They Are Visiting Earth well represents that aspect of their work. Just about every line of that poem doesn't end up where you thought it might be going. Which is why it is by turns perplexed and pitying, testing and touching, wondering and witnessing, piercing and almost parenting. The central stanza in the exact center of Aliens Explain Why They Are Visiting Earth is, because we've never seen anything like that anywhere, we have so many questions. It's worth noting that they're only visiting. We have to live here. And we see stuff like that all the time, all around us. And those last two sentences, to be human, it seems, is to know your true self only as well as you know a galaxy you've never been to. We came here to help you get there. Yes. And very kind, I'm sure. So do we want to wait for the aliens to come, or do we want to try and figure all this out for ourselves? To compare the human unconscious to a distant galaxy is apt, but we do have technology for the journey inward. And it is not as costly as it seems to go there, although it can feel like it. To be human, it seems, is to know your true self only as well as you know a galaxy you've never been to. Maybe. Being human is like that. And we have a choice about knowing it. I do love that poem. If you're wondering what the eighth principle means, that's the core of it. Specifically, it's about why and how our social systems reinforce and perpetuate racial and other oppressions. These days, we are experiencing a lot of the how, but it's a flavor of how that not only says, but does the quiet part out loud. And apparently, in more tranquil times, our trusted institutions have, in various and subtle ways, perpetuated the same palette of oppressions now on gaudy display. To dismantle such institutionalized inequity and injustice is the goal of the range of activities involved in anti-racism, anti-oppression, and multicultural awareness work that the eighth principle calls us to do. The background of the eighth principle initiative, including why we call it eighth principle, is on the insert in your order of service, suitable for posting by your desk or on your refrigerator at home. And you'll find there what commitment to the eighth principle means. Journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. This is not a task with a beginning, a middle, and an end. It is an ongoing spiritual practice, a way of moving and being in the world, a way of life. This congregation voted at the 2022 annual meeting to commit to this spiritual discipline. 3 years later, it's still early days for such a commitment, and in our 75th anniversary year, it's fitting to recall the work we've done so far, and once again invite us all to participate in it as best we can. Our eighth principle programs so far have covered the range from engaging together in individual reflection and growth in awareness of systemic oppressions, to ways we can show up with our neighbors to dismantle at least a bit of it locally, to examining our own church organization and habits to make sure they are not contributing to racial and other oppressions among ourselves or toward our neighbors. Our programs so far have included classes where participants read and reflected on Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility, and a worship service where members of those classes shared what they learned. A section of our church library is dedicated to books about racial healing. A quarterly Quest treasure hunt you may have found in the lobby or in the outer circle listed events or places around town where one can learn about the local history of racism and other oppressions. We held film discussions, some evening programs, and some on Sunday afternoons with short films. We've talked about or actually made field trips together to places like Daisy Bates House, Central High School, local lynching memorial dedications, exhibits, and events at the Mosaic Templars Cultural Center, events at UALR during their National Week for Racial Healing, always the week of the Martin Luther King Jr. Day holiday in January. Commemorations of the Brown versus Board decision at Philander Smith University. Living Legacy Project pilgrimages to civil rights history sites in Alabama, Mississippi, or South Carolina. And local events connected with the Poor People's Campaign, NAACP, or similar organizations, or hosted by local nonprofits like CALS or the Arkansas Times. We've talked about organizing a UUCLR presence at a community event once a quarter, such as, for example, in the spring at a McDermott Elementary School Community Schools event, in the summer attending the Juneteenth observance at Mosaic Templars, in the fall attending the Arkansas Black Hall of Fame ceremony, and in the winter participating in the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Parade. And reflecting with an anti-racist, anti-oppression lens on our experiences in our ongoing Faith in Action community engagement at McDermott or our house or the van or any place else we regularly volunteer. Monthly meetings of 8th Principal Committee on the 4th Tuesday of the month in the Pearson Room are open and usually include such reflection on our community engagement experiences. You'd be welcome to join us. Now, to offer some reflections this morning, I invite Margot Cameron, who will be followed by Rich Roy and then Sky Brower.
The 8th principle asks us to personally grow toward spiritual wholeness in order to dismantle oppression. To be an effective ally to racial healing, I chose to follow the footsteps of the soldiers of the civil rights movement, to learn how to engage in nonviolent resistance. And to that end, I attended a weekend workshop focused on the teachings of Howard Thurman. I'll offer a very brief overview of this fathomless subject. Howard Thurman was and is a force for nonviolent resistance. He was a spiritual mentor to Martin Luther King, who carried his book, Jesus and the Disinherited, in his briefcase everywhere he went. Thurman was born at the turn of the century. He was a theologian and spiritual leader, a mystic, a philosopher, a poet and a scholar, a civil rights pioneer, as well as a feminist and environmentalist before his time. He wrote over 20 books and founded the Fellowship Church for All Peoples in San Francisco in 1944, the country's first interracial, interfaith church. Howard Thurman shared a message of universal love and equality. He truly changed the course of American history. As a child, Thurman already showed himself to be a seeker. He spent many hours in meditations under his favorite oak tree, which is still there in Daytona. He grew up under the tutelage of his grandmother, who had been enslaved. She repeated to Howard the words the enslaved preacher had taught her: "You are not a slave. You are a child of God." This became a pillar of his teaching, to remember we are all children of God, no exceptions. Another pillar of Thurman's theology was to learn how to center down. He poetically explains what this is: to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our mind seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashing and noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment, the resting lull. With full intensity we seek, ere the quiet passes, a fresh sense of order in our living, a direction, a strong, sure purpose that will structure our confusion and bring meaning to our chaos. A regular practice of centering down and respect for all people as children of God grows towards a third pillar: to love your enemy as yourself and resist the three hounds of hell: fear, deception, and hate. Thurman said, "To love one's enemy means that a fundamental attack must first be made on the enemy's status." With Jesus as his model, he explains we must separate the Roman from the empire and focus on his humanity, to stop othering. Speaking to those with their backs against the wall, Thurman says, "There must be the clearest possible understanding of the issues facing them. They must recognize fear, hatred, and deception for what it is, and to learn how to destroy or to render themselves immune to their domination." To see everyone as a child of God, to take time to center down and recognize fear, hatred, and deception when you see it, it's a good beginning to our journey towards spiritual wholeness. And I hope each one of us has a way that we can enter into this journey together.
It is so good to be a part of all the things we're doing at this church, and an honor to be here this morning to share with you some more direct action steps to dismantle racism that we are doing. And this is our work in and with the City of Elaine and the Elaine Legacy Center. UCLR took direct steps to embrace its eighth principle by engaging with the Elaine Legacy Center and local leaders. We began here by showing the film We Have Just Begun, a 2023 documentary that exposed the buried history and enduring legacy of the 1919 Elaine Massacre and dispossession, a deadly racial and labor conflict in Phillips County, Arkansas. Occurred May 11th. That film was shown May 11th, 2024. Michael Wilson, the film's producer and director, was our guest for this presentation, and he led a vigorous Q&A session following the film. Additionally, we have engaged with Elaine leadership through our Second Sunday Share the Plate program. Most recently, we've supported the Hummingbird Organic Garden and Farm. The farm is a new organic farm project in Elaine that is a partnership between the Legacy Center and a retirement investor, the Teachers Insurance and Annuity Association of America, TIAA. It is being established on 80 acres of land near Elaine to promote community health and counteract the region's history of large-scale chemical-based agriculture. The project is part of an effort by residents to reclaim land and promote sustainable agriculture in a region with a history of racial exploitation and environmental change. Several UUCLR members made an informative trip in late 2024 to visit the Elaine Legacy Center, the proposed museum site in downtown Elaine, and we visited the temporary legacy site at the former Elaine Elementary School. We met with the Reverend Mary Olson, United Methodist minister and Elaine Legacy Center co-founder, with James White, a descendant, and also co-founder and director of the Elaine Legacy Center. And we met with other descendants to discuss the efforts to address the ongoing impact of the massacre. These are specific actions where we as members of UUCLR assist in the dismantling of racism in an accountable way. We should never forget. Let me share with you some reminders about the Elaine Massacre of 1919. Black sharecroppers who often received unfair payments for their cotton crops had begun to organize into the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America to seek better wages and conditions. Approximately 100 black sharecroppers met at a church in Hoop Spur near the town of Elaine. A shootout occurred when a group of white men, including a railroad security officer, approached the church. That white officer was killed and another man was wounded. News of the confrontation was quickly and falsely spread by white authorities and media as a Negro insurrection or uprising against white residents. Over the next several days, mobs of armed white men indiscriminately hunted and murdered black men, women, and children across the county. Then Arkansas Governor Charles Breaux requested federal troops who arrived on October 2nd, 1919. Hundreds of African Americans were arrested and held in stockades and jails. Over 100 were charged with crimes. 12 were quickly convicted and sentenced to death. But NAACP and black journalist Ida B. Wells intervened, leading to a protracted legal battle that eventually resulted in the release of the convicted men. The Elaine Massacre is considered one of the deadliest racial conflicts in U.S. history and a devastating example of white supremacist violence used to suppress black economic and political organizing. While we as a single congregation perhaps cannot change individual mindsets or totally dismantle racism in Elaine, in the eastern delta of Arkansas, in Little Rock, or in the state of Arkansas, we can, however, continue to engage in our support for the Elaine Legacy Center and their local leaders and work within our congregation and in outreach efforts to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Margaret Mead famously said, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Social change is not dependent on large majorities, but on the persistent and committed efforts of a dedicated few. Let's continue to do our part. Thank you.
Good morning, and as the others have shared, I'm honored to have been asked again to say a few words on 8th Principle Day. And as Reverend Paul shared, 2022 was when the 8th Principle was enacted here. The day that happened was my first day visiting the church. A couple of members had told me about the 8th Principle, and that was the draw for me. That's what actually got me to come back in a church again. And so I like to be prepared. I like to do my homework. So 3 minutes before the annual meeting began, I Googled UU principles. And I thought, oh, this is great. This is going to be a shoo-in. And I was a little startled, actually. It wasn't just all in favor, aye? Any nays? There was some spirited debate, and it all came from a good place. What I really took away from that was the concern, are we really going to commit to this if we do it, or are we just chasing the next shiny thing and then going to put half-hearted effort into it, or maybe eventually abandon it? So when the church voted it in overwhelmingly, it came from a good place, and I've had the joy of seeing this church embrace the 8th Principle and really put heart into it. And what made that debate so important was that we see, especially in hindsight now, there's been a lot of token effort out there regarding racial healing and racial justice. We see it in all the corporations and organizations that so readily gave up their DEI programs when they had the chance to do it. Why? Because guess what? They never meant it in the first place. It was something that they felt that they had to do. Now, what makes the 8th Principle so tough? Well, why should it be such a major consideration? Well, prejudice, bias. These things are ingrained in our human nature. We're asking ourselves to rise above our natural human nature. These things are ingrained in thousands of years of evolution, where we had to learn to quickly differentiate between threats to our survival in safe situations. And so over time, we've learned to take this to the worst ends, where we just naturally make snap judgments that are not fair or we hate. And then we have all sorts of forces in our society that really push that. Now more than ever, I'm stunned when I look at the state of our country today, and I see the types of, and the vitriol and the hatred that comes. So doing eighth principle work now, this really requires courage. It requires us to rise above our natural nature and be exceptional people in a world that really need light, really need empathy, really need understanding. Now, there are two parts to racial healing and racial justice work. I usually separate those into the inner work and the outer work. Real simple on the inner work, that's the part that it's really good for us to do to prepare us to do the outer work so that we can go out solidly on 2 feet instead of hopping around on one while the other one's perpetually in our mouth. So wear a good pair of socks. You don't want to have to explain where those bite marks came from. I've had to do it a few times. The outer work is where we actually go out and engage, and social psychology has proven that the best way to address fears and prejudices is to spend time with people that are different than you, and then naturally those things fade. I want to highlight some of the special things that I've seen this church do as my role, in my role as a community school site coordinator for McDermott Elementary. Y'all came in, opened up a food pantry to our school, and the efforts that y'all have put in have been beyond my comprehension. And you're consistently looking for ways to do more. Our staff love seeing you, our families love seeing you, our kids love seeing you. Also, I've enjoyed getting to know Sharon Boyd Struthers, who came to the school one day and said, "I'm a retired educator, how can I help?" And it was that easy. And she comes out routinely and tutors kids. And last Friday I come to the school, it's dark outside. I get there, it's like 6:45, and there's at least 4 UUC members out there already to dispense food. The other day, Nell Matthews sends me an email and says, "Hey, the city's going to be passing out some gift cards for Edwards. How can we incorporate this? How can we continue to add more value?" I'm impressed by the number of volunteers that come out. Like, I know how hard it is to get volunteers these days, and this church is committed, and it warms my heart, and it makes a difference. Thank you for everything that you're doing. Please stick with it. The eighth principle is so worth it. It's one of the most worthy things we could do. I'm honored to be an ally. Thank you very much.
Times like those we are now living through illustrate why, for example, we titled the Gray Hymnal, "Singing the Living Tradition." Is because we believe that faith and religious practice must continually change and adapt over time. At least intellectually, we are clear about that. Ours is a living tradition. And it takes a real effort to change faithfully and meaningfully. In this way, the new description of our faith that our UUA General Assembly formally adopted last year is a ray of hope. It so happens that they align closely with a wider consensus about what values foster faithful change and meaningful adaptation toward liberation from oppression and a more humane, peaceful, and just society. For example, Crossroads Anti-Racism Organizing and Training names 6 transforming values that can guide us toward anti-racist ways of being and moving in the world. Some of them will sound very familiar. The inherent worthiness of all beings, responsible interdependence, expansive inclusivity, abundance, transparency, and collaboration and cooperation. These are easily combined with our 6 values with love at the center to make 6 short one-sentence definitions. The inherent worthiness of all beings rather than a norm of disposability in pursuit of equity. Responsible interdependence rather than the drive to dominate in pursuit of interdependence. Expansive inclusivity rather than the pernicious dualism of us versus them in pursuit of justice. Abundance rather than scarcity in pursuit of generosity. Transparency rather than secrecy in pursuit of collective transformation. Collaboration and cooperation rather than isolating and exhausting competition in pursuit of pluralism. In the quiet ways we live our values every day, we are making a difference. And that phrase, live our values every day, forms the acronym LOVED. At the end of the day, the quiet ways we have loved will lay the groundwork for justice, equity, transformation of how our neighbors treat each other, recognizing pluralism and interdependence with generosity. At the same time that we stand to uphold and to defend respect for democracy, the rule of law, equal justice, and the sacred idea that every one of us in every walk of life has certain fundamental rights and freedoms. At the same time that we roll up our sleeves to do that public work, the way we live our values every day contributes quietly to sustain the ongoing effort to dismantle oppression. So again, we invite you to participate, to keep participating in our 8th principle work to dismantle systemic oppressions, and to hang in there with the spiritual practices of reflection, noticing, and learning that go into living our values every day. When we see through an anti-racist, anti-oppression lens, everything we do may have something in it for fruitful reflection and spiritual growth, and offer something for us to offer toward collective liberation, resistance, and ultimately dismantling of oppression. May our lives help bring about a better world. Amen.
I did not plan that, but it was perfect. I didn't realize it was going to work out like that. Okay, first I want to acknowledge we are over time, way over time. Sometimes working for justice may ask more of us, so this is an example of that. So thank you for being willing to give. We were going to invite Jean back up to give us give us our closing words and extinguish the chalice. Okay, let us say together, please, as printed in your program. Go out into the world with peace, have courage, hold on to what is good, return to no person evil for evil, strengthen the faint-hearted, support the weak, help the suffering, and honor all beings.
And may our lives help bring about a better world. And if you're going to go on the Woodlands Walk, now's the time.